That's all for like a food service, for a food service location. In factories, there we depend on the place. We'll decide yes or no, and a fair amount of places that need Bishul Yisroel, a fair amount of places, not a tremendous amount, but a fair amount of them that actually they cook something that needs to be Bishul Yisroel. Pas Yisrael is easier because Pas Palter is mutter.
There are a lot of factories that have like Bishul Yisroel Shabbos.
There are a fair amount of them. Not percentage-wise, probably maybe let's say I'll pick it up 10%. You know what I mean? Sometimes Bishul Yisrael is the reason why they don't become kosher. So in other words, they would need Bishul Yisrael, and that's makes them not be able to become kosher. Just not realistic to do it. In other ones, they cook the way they cook is always on, so to speak. So the Yid has to just keep it on and keeps it on. You know. So.
Now,
There's a place in Chicago. Just a lot of people end up going there because it's a really fun place to go to. It's fun to watch, and they're allowed to have visitors. So when groups want to go place, the rabbi takes them there. They make blintzes and pierogies and all kinds of things that you think are Jewish foods, and they're really not Jewish foods. They're really Polish foods. This is a Polish company. So they call blintzes and all kinds of things like that you think those are Jewish names. They're really not. They're just Polish names. And all those things are the Bishul Yisroel. And there, the person who takes care of it turns it on remotely every day. He puts it on remotely to make it Bishul Yisroel.
So this was a shadow. Yosef goes through that it has to be Gufay, Bishul Yisroel.
Mm-hmm.
How does remotely? It seems like works in the place, can it?
Mm-hmm.
How does that do with the Gufay?
What happens when you turn the knob on the oven? I don't mean if you literally turn the knob and the gas flows up because of that. But what happens when you flip the switch?
Oh, okay.
So what's the difference between that and pushing the switch from 5 miles away?
So how did that become Gufay?
Because it just is. When I do it, it makes it go on. When my action caused that thing to happen. I'm not sure, but you're probably even Chaim Yisif for killing something like that. It's Kosher. I did it. I pushed the button and that happened to the guy. The fact that there's a few things that happen, there's like many miles or a few steps in between.
So Gufay doesn't mean direct. It means.
He's talking about there as opposed to blowing, blowing.
So,
right. So
blowing
that
is the same thing.
And blowing the din is okay. No, am I mistaken? That blowing is
only because there's a special limit from the Marvel Kama that blowing is called Begufay.
Okay.
How do you know that this is called Begufay? This is just pushing a button. That's totally unrelated to that thing.
It's totally unrelated. You sound like you just came from Ghana with the mayor from Los Angeles. That oh my gosh, you push this button, it's like magic. It's unrelated. It's like connected. You know and I that when you push the button, that's what.
You don't see it happen. You don't see how it's related. It's not easy to see it how it's.
So you don't see it. Except the mashgiach sat in the plant and called on his phone, even though he was watching it. He dials the number, he pushes in the magic number that he has to do to make it go on, and the machine goes on. So when he's in his pajamas at home, because it's early in the morning usually when he does it, you don't see it. But if you watch what's going on, you see what happens. You know. But
So Gufay, because it means directly, it doesn't mean it has to be connection between you and me.
I think so.
Would
you think the guy's chayv on Hilchos Shabbos?
Yeah.
We think he's chayv on Hilchos Shabbos if he did that and he made it go on like that? I think Hilchos Shabbos.
So besides, he's not saying a new thing that has to be more Gufay than.
I think so, but again, it's
the next shaila was it seems like the Ramaz make by Bishul Akum of the Ramah that a Yid could turn on the stove and a guy could put it on.
correct.
The Taz is chaylik. Seems like there's a lot of nice scale and chaylik on that. Is that across the board that we go to Kula like the Ramah?
Ashkenazim too.
Even though you have.
But why do we? If it's like, seems like the nice scale are all a lot of them are chaylik.
So I don't remember then, but I'm believing you. I don't remember. It just that's just how everyone follows in halacha l'maisa. That's what people do. So
Right, but we're just trying to figure out why. Like in the nice scale, there's a lot of chaylik on the Ramah.
The Ramah says chen
and that's the truth. I mean, that is what people do. Yeah, but don't know.
The shaila was in a factory or a restaurant. What are the dinim of Beis Yisrael?
Okay, can I just go back to you for a second? I just want to tell you that people try to Bishul Yisroel for the Sephardim. They don't always get it right. you should just know that it takes work to do it correctly for the Sephardim, which in a restaurant it's easier. You put the food on, the fire's on, you put the food onto it. In factories, it's very hard, much harder to do that because it's hard to put the food on or to turn things on after the food's already in the pot. It's not so easy to do that. So Sephardim have a hard time when they have food that need to be Bishul Yisroel. It's harder for them to get food that's Bishul Yisroel for them to what they need to do.
So does that mean that it's hard, that they don't do it right?
That means is Ravadi has a truth about it. Like, what are they supposed to do? Or how are they supposed to eat? Because if their food needs Bishul, Sephardim have a fair amount of problems getting food. That's not the only chumrah that the Mechaber has. The Mechaber has a chumrah about if the Yid cooked it partially, and then, the guy cooked it partially, and then the Yid finishes off the cooking. So the Moses will make them. The Mechaber is not make about that. Okay, if Gomer Yisrael, and there are a certain amount of foods that are made like that. That the Ashkenazi hashgacha doesn't make it Bishul Yisrael because they think that the person at home is going to finish it off. That's not good for Sephardim. So they have it's not easy for them. There was supposed to be, I don't think they had a Kashrus conference at in a Sephardic community. It was supposed to be. It's not going to happen. So I told Rabbi Fishman, when we had the conference in that place, it got a long list of differences from Ashkenaz and Sephardim of how they have to. We can have this in a Sephardi place. How they have to think about what they eat. That we're doing all kinds of things like Ashkenazim, and we're doing the right thing, but they're not Ashkenazim, so not so simple for them. Anyway, I'm sorry. Back to you. Next year.
The heter ben Avram of Beis Yisrael.
Who's the last the Ramah?
Of Kisen.
Yeah.
Shows if Kisen, the Ramah says a chen noigim, and then he brings down Kisim. At the end, he just brings down Kisim. Ashkenazim are Meko, the chen noigim of the Ramah. And he's going on Kisim.
He's going on Ishmael.
And Ishmael, right? He says okay, and then he brings on Kisim and Ishmael.
Right. So.
Ishmael at the end. Right?
So really, everybody always was make like that. Everybody always used to be samach on that.
Ishmael.
Like the pilot light in the kitchen right here is Ishmael. And you being samach on that because that's considered Bishul Yisroel. Everybody was always samach on that. In recent years, people have started saying, well, the Chachmas Adam says not to be samach on it, and people not so happy, but maybe it's only b'di'evet, not to be samach on it, to do like that. So there are people now who in restaurant type situations will only use it as a backup. They won't use it as l'chatchila, they'll only use it as the b'di'evet. They say, Pashkirch, you should light all the fires, but we make sure that the pilots are lit, excuse me, in order as a backup. In case something went wrong, we have a backup that it should be done. But I don't think that's really them. And nobody ever, that wasn't common until recent years. But in recent years, people have tried. In factories, no one's being mocked on that. In food service, the mashgiachs there, they say, okay, we'll try to do that and use not everybody, people are trying to do it.
Is it possible that a pilot light some people will view as better than Ishmael?
So people have tried to convince me, but I haven't bought it yet.
This one is under the stove.
I know, they told me that. So what? So what if it's under the stove?
So isn't that just being makes it happen every time?
So you're talking about in the oven or in the stovetop?
About the stovetop.
In the stovetop, if it's right underneath the pot.
Yeah.
So it in itself is helping out in the
It's warm. Even when the fire is not on.
So it's not. So forget about that. It's Ishmael. Forget about that. Light the big fire. It's part of it. It's helping cook in the fire. Right?
That the chef has to be right to cook the food.
No, it doesn't have to be. Even it's Raj who says that has to be mashal kisim. But in the same sentence he says also is that even though it does absolutely nothing, it means is
Kisim is already a fire.
It means is we say it has to be part of the food. It means is I can't imagine like this. The whole reason for hashlochas kisim is to be hecker. So I'll tell you what I'll do. The guy cooks the food, and I'm going to put a little sign next to it that says the Jews were here. Okay, so is that a hecker? So should I do the hecker? No. So that's what it means. It has to be part of the cooking is because putting a little sign next to it, or even lighting a little fire next to it on the side of the pot. That's silly. The hecker has to be part of the cooking, but it doesn't mean that it has to help with the cooking because the kisim doesn't help anything for the cooking. You know, but you're saying is if I have my fire underneath there, so okay, maybe that's a little bit better. But that's you're trying to read into what people did, but people didn't do that. People always assume that a pilot light is fine, it's Asian, it's perfectly fine, even because Rama says that it's mutter. So and again, it's a more recent thing. It's not a bad thing if you could do it, but they'll do the pilot just as a backup, you know.
This Rabbeinu Avram of Beis Yisrael, the Tamer of Beis Yisrael, and Shifcha. How does that apply to a factory and a restaurant? Does it apply at all?
Factories, I don't know.
It's owned by Yid. It's not.
It might be maybe be shifcha, but it's not shifcha. We don't consider it to be shifcha.
Rabbi uses it as a certified factory.
Okay, we don't consider it to be a shifcha. In the house also, it's
Let's go with Pinley. First, start by Pinley in the house.
so most people don't think that that's considered shifcha because shifcha means there's someone who's obligated to work for you. Shifcha, she's not obligated. She's not obligated. She's paying you. She decides today she wants to work for you. Tomorrow, what do you say?
That's true about every clean lady. She's not
In America.
That's correct. She's not a shifcha. That's exactly what I'm telling you. She's not a shifcha. That's not what it means. Shifcha means where she has to work. So there's no chasnas because there's no kir vadas because the person you must work for me. Over here, when we walk into this kitchen, you say, "How are you doing, Elba? And nice to see you. It's been how are your kids doing? And what's because we're friendly with them because we want to keep them happy and to want to work with us, right? We have kir vadas as opposed to as opposed to the shifcha. You're not nice to the shifcha. I mean, maybe you want to be nice to shifcha, but it's like she's stuck. She has to work here. So that's an automatic separation. Most people don't think that.
You think that nowadays it's less than the Ramah was talking about?
Yeah.
Ramah says shifcha shalom. He's already making the distinction that you're making.
I'm not sure. I don't know if that.
You're saying it's even less than what it was in the Ramah.
Yeah, but I don't think, and for sure not in factories. No one's talking about that. There's other side. There's Ramosha. It's not in the printed Jew, but you probably know about this. Ramosha said what?
River Sefran brings it.
He says Ramosha said that it's not. There's no chash chasnas b'chlal, and it's only a plug to do that. You know, so okay, so that's a different thing. That someone mitzaref that in situations.
And the Beis Yisrael, what's called as a restaurant called the Beis Yisrael?
I'm not sure. Maybe yes. I'm not sure.
It seems like there's a shaila about Oleh shulchan melachim, chazanish. You know exactly what's considered Oleh shulchan melachim and how we done. Mamish the melach state chasna Shabbos. Is there any tzad that cereal is Oleh shulchan melachim? The shaila is basically the chazanish goes that it doesn't have to be mamish a supper. It could be more of a breakfast. Is he saying that?
No, that's not the chazanish. The chazanish says it doesn't have to be a formal meal. It's anything that a melech would eat. Because there's certain foods that are so like repulsive to a king, they wouldn't even touch that food. But anything that they would eat, even any time, is good enough. That's great. Okay, so within that,
these things, I think the chazan should be masculine is not included.
I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe an amalek melech wouldn't eat a snack, but our melachim would eat snacks. What do you think that Biden did when he was watching the Monday Night Football? He was eating snacks. What do you think he does when he eats Monday Night Football? So I.
Is there anything now that's not?
This come out nothing. This come out.
I think the chazan should just extend it. It doesn't have to be mamish supper as a Kashrus, even let's say a formal breakfast.
It's not formal. The chazan is so about sardines. Okay, no one serves that as formal. No, that's what she eats. He said the Queen of England eats sardines for breakfast every day. That's what she eats. So so that was like there's a certain level. Nowadays there's come out nothing that wouldn't be Oleh shulchan melachim that. But
is that so he's
but I don't think anybody follows that. In halacha l'maisa, I don't think people follow that. You know. What was the question?
We use the Rav Sefer very often.
Good.
I thought we could check, but it sounded like the snacks, even in the chazanish.
Really?
Check this.
Okay, that's
So
good.
what are you waiting for?
So I have to tell you. I have to tell you that
It's a snack.
I have to tell you that I personally learned by Five Cohen, but my father knew him for 70 years probably. They know each other forever. So Rav said when he was going to write his first sefer, he came to Rav and said to him, he says, "I'm concerned about writing the sefer." He says because today I think a certain thing, and then tomorrow when I come I think differently about it. So if you talk to me is one thing, but if I print in the sefer, it's going to be stuck like that. The way it said yesterday, I said mutter us, and then tomorrow I change my mind. So what's going to happen? Everyone said, I don't hear the kasha. He says on.
What's that?
Referring told the certified one. He's writing his sefer the first time. He says, I don't know what's the problem. The chacham on Sunday said mutter. The chacham on Monday said asur. So I'm following the chacham on Sunday. The fact that it happened to be the same person doesn't make a difference to me. There was one chacham who had thought it through and came to a decision that on Sunday it was mutter. That's why who I learned. That's what's printed in the sefer. And on Monday the chacham thought that different. The fact that it was the same person doesn't make a difference. So in fact, if I don't think what it says agree with the book, that's okay. Don't. But what does it say there? I'm curious to hear what he had to say.
Over here.
Okay. Okay. We can argue. We can figure out. Okay. But it's very, very limited. Okay, even according to the book.
Email the author. Yeah.
Tell the author, yeah.
The whole Makar, we saw the way you wrote in Chazanish in this sefer is that most American Kashrus and Shulchan don't go with this Chazanish.
Nobody does.
The reason is because they're making on, let's say, waffles and pancakes, all these other things.
You bring me the raya that they make that they don't do like that.
They don't go with it. Yeah.
But I don't know if that's how if I wrote it. I mean, in truth, they don't. If they thought down to think about it, they would say, no, we don't follow that way of looking at it. Now you bring me a raya. So I went to the store and I have a raya to it, but okay.
No, so I was thinking that just inside that rag, you could be madchik that the Chazanish was talking about sardines in back in the day in Europe. So Reb Shimon Schwab, the whole story is from the Chazanish. Reb Shimon Schwab went to the Chazanish and he said that how could you say that sardines are melachim? I saw the Rosh Hashivas in Europe ate sardines in the morning.
Okay.
So what in the morning? They used to eat sardines. So the Chazanish said that you look at the Queen of England and she eats it for breakfast. So it's Oleh melachim. So the way I understood what the Chazanish was saying is it could be nowadays sardines is not. That's the Chacham says everything goes based on the makom. That's not. But the sardines were, even though they weren't eaten for supper time, but that's because they weren't. It's not because they weren't chashuv. It's just because when people are eating their main supper, if they're having fish, they'll have a bigger fish, they'll have salmon, tuna.
Okay.
They're not going to have sardines; those are smaller. But for a royal breakfast, what you would serve by a royal breakfast would be sardines. So according to that, it will come out that Chazanish isn't arguing on what we're saying nowadays.
That's being malamischos on the Chazanish to say that he didn't mean it. That he didn't really mean that.
Meaning
we're misunderstanding it.
Snack,
I understand.
that wouldn't be mugash in a royal breakfast.
Okay.
That
Yeah, could be. Could be. Rebelski used to like sardines.
He did like sardines?
Yeah, I can't stand the smell of sardines, but he used to eat them all the time because he didn't want to eat OU tuna and the sardines, so he was able to eat it because he could recognize the sardines. In his mind, at least in his mind, when looking at the sardines, he could tell that they were really kosher fish. He didn't think it didn't have a mashgiach.
They're a little. Yeah.
I don't know if they were. They weren't. He had the blue color. He had this thing about the color. Whatever he could tell that they were really kosher fish. Even the Gemara that says about having siman on fish that potentially says that is talking about little fish. That's what it's talking about. There's one word in the Mishnah, vachilik. Okay, I don't know if you learned the second paragraph. Did you learn the second paragraph? Did you learn Bishul Yisroel? Second paragraph of Zohar?
Yeah.
Anyway, so in that one, not in the first Mishnah, in the second and third Mishnah, vachilik. Okay, that's the whole chashash that maybe you have to have mashgiach to maybe for watching the fish. So that's a little fish. But those are little fish, like sardines. But anyhow, he used to eat them. So he didn't hold like that. Anyhow, go ahead.
Momer l'chal Shabbos, and gave Bishul Yisroel and Pasakum. We saw that how did they go home?
So you saw what I wrote, which is what people do, which is in din they hold that it's okay, that makes the food Bishul Yisroel. But in practice, we wouldn't do it because the person has no nemanas, and we can't count them to do it. And I don't know if I wrote the story there.
Can't count on them to not mix and trade.
No, to not have a not Jewish person light the fire.
That's what that means?
Yeah, and that is, and the story happened. It actually happened in Texas. This story, I was here to see something under a different hashgacha, and we're about to walk into the place. I said, "What do they do here? They make whatever they make. Needs Bishul Yisroel? Yeah, it needs Bishul Yisroel. But there's a person who works there who's not Non-Shomer Shabbos, but he does all the cooking. So we know it's Bishul Yisroel because he does all the cooking." I said, "Okay, no problem. That's what we're going to see." So we walk into the place. Rabbi Rosemas will tell you, before we walk in, I always ask the person, "What am I about to see when I'm walking into here?" Okay? Then we told him, "Okay, no problem." We walk into the place, and in walks in Bob, whatever the guy's Jewish name was. We say to him, "Hi, Bob. So who cooks the food He said, oh, Jose put it on. We said, oh, I thought you're supposed to do it. He says, yeah, I know, but today I was busy, so Jose put on the thing. Because to him it's not important, because he doesn't care. I mean, he knows he's supposed to from a Kashrus perspective, but Kashrus is not important, so he doesn't have no
Why
manas.
was I telling you that?
Because that's how unimportant it was. He knew that the rules are, he in theory, he's supposed to do it, but I was busy, so I asked Jose to do it, because it's not makbid on him, because to him it's not important. So he doesn't have the manas. So it would be negaya only if you have a nanny in your house who you know is a Jewish person, but they're not Shomer Shabbos. So what can they do wrong? Okay, you have an elderly person that's being taken care of by someone who's Jewish, who's not from. So we count on them to make it Bishul Yisroel, because there's nothing can't go wrong. Who else could they call? They can't call in somebody else to do the cooking. So then we count them. In din it's mutter, but nemanas wise, so hashkacha wise, we would never count on the person. But for private person, if it comes up, then it would be okay.
And the reason why are we mad there? Make it
Because the ikra is the reason because it's noch shash chasnas.
what about Shani Echel and
That's not real considered to be the ikra reason.
We don't consider that.
Then that's not the real reason. The main reason we look at is the chasnas, and there's no chasnas, So, before we go on, I'm happy to talk to you all day. Just as soon as my Uber driver tells me it's time for us to go to the airport, then we're going to go. So whatever, it's up to him. It's
Okay.
Huh?
What time?
We're out of here by 40.
40. Okay, so what? You will come with us if you want to squeeze into his car. We can keep on going.
I have a van. You can take a van. We can take any of your cars.
You discussed tuna, let's say potato chips and Pringles. So, Moshe, but what's how chomer is it and how cool is it?
In practice?
Yeah.
So, the main regular national hashgachas do not make them Bishul Yisroel because they say it's not Oleh shulchan. They're not Oleh shulchan.
They themselves.
Let me just think for a second before I continue what I'm saying.
What's the question?
Pringles.
Potato chips and Pringles.
Pringles actually put Pringles separate from potato chips. Potato chips are not Oleh shulchan. Everybody agrees that potato chips are not Oleh shulchan. But some people say as well, since potatoes are Oleh shulchan, so all things made out of potatoes need to be Bishul Yisroel. The national hashgachas don't go along with that. The Hamish hashgachas, a lot of them, in practice, make it Bishul Yisroel. I don't know if they do that because they think the din is incorrect, or because they make their productions with the mashgiach there all the time anyhow, the whole production. So why not have the guy turn on the fires? It's so easy. Why start thinking about shaylas? Tell the mashgiach, whenever you go to a production, you put on the fires. It's like a shud not to do it. He's there. Don't be so smart. Just put on the fire every time. So I'm not sure if they took up
They do one production.
because
They do one run.
right
They
the
don't
most of the food that's made specifically for Jewish people, it's a pashkas product. So they're not making all the time, and it's being made every day of the week, and in a factory it's doing it all the time with a mashgiach dropping in once in a while. As most of the time they're just coming and making a production one time, and they, not all of them, but many of them will send the mashgiach to every single run, sit there the whole time. So if they do that, I didn't say they do it. If they do that, so he says the mashgiach, whenever you show up to one of these places, turn the fires on. Makes sense. You might as well,
We saw that a lot of the places are machmir on the potato chips.
Oh, I said that?
No, we saw whatever the
Okay.
place can. So, but you're saying we don't pass it like that, or
Nobody's doing that. It's not what people do. So again, when Hamish do it, I don't know if they're doing it b'shita or they're doing it just because it's easy. So we might as well do.
Says is there makom timach? Is there?
It's hard for me to answer that question. I'm not makbid. I don't think people need to be makbid. I don't think that's how we look at things. Each food is its food.
How about tuna fish?
What do you say?
What about tuna fish?
Put on the side. So it's a different question.
it says there Moshe.
So it's a really short tshuva. It's a really uncharacteristic tshuva, like a one-liner. Okay, so you read into it whatever you want to. It's a now, but Pringles is a different thing because Pringles is made. It's not made like potato chips. Pringles are potato flakes that are then put back together to make into a Pringle. So the question is, at the earlier stages, the Bishul Yisroel. Not the Pringle itself is not Oleh shulchan, but what about the potato flakes, which are, you could go, if you go in the kitchen now, they have potato flakes in there, and they're going to make mashed potatoes that are perfectly fine. Even before the mashed potatoes, they come out of the machine. They come out before they get dried into flakes. They're beautiful, great mashed potatoes. So that's the shaila is a different kind of a question. there, the question is, does that potato need, the way you make those potato flakes, does that need Bishul Yisroel? Most of them make about that also.
It's more of a cool.
It's
Downing after potato chips. Then it's not.
No. It's more of a chumrah. Because the thing that it makes is not potato chips. The thing that it makes is nice, fluffy mashed potatoes that are Oleh Shach
How
Melachim.
does it become Muslim?
Right, so it would be usher. So the question is there something about the way they make those that doesn't need Bishul Yisroel? Or if it does someone have to make it Bishul Yisroel, which is better for the Jews? It would have been Bishul Yisroel because it was required in that case. So the hashgacha, really the thought is about the way they make the potatoes, not the Pringles. In practice, if I'm remembering correctly how you make Pringles, in practice, most do not make that Bishul Yisroel. I could hear arguments about that. It has to do with the way that's cooked.
What's the time that it should be mutter when it's cooked?
Because it's, if I'm remembering correctly of how they make that kind of potatoes, it's made with live steam, and it's.
So it isn't a Tuna Shabbos.
It's connected to tuna, yeah. So that's cooked with live steam, yes. So what I'm saying, that's a different question. There's I hear a reason I would say no, I don't agree with that. There, I think you need to Bishul Yisroel, but it's not like potato chips where the whole thing that you make is not Oleh Shach Melachim. There, if I'm remembering correctly how you make Pringles. The first step of it is a regular potato that's more serious.
So the heter is that it was steamed.
If I'm remembering correctly of how you make Pringles, then that's okay. Now the tuna has two studim why it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. And when you buy Hamish Tuna and it says on it Bishul Yisroel, it's true. I assume it's true that it's Bishul Yisroel. But the real reason for someone to want to buy that is because they hold that a yid has to check every fish. The Bishul Yisroel part is not such a strong reason to buy it, in my mind. Okay. And I'll tell you what the two reasons why it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. One is because what we were just talking about, cooking with live steam, maybe it's not considered Bishul. Okay, that doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. That's not the stronger side. The stronger side is like this. The way you make tuna fish is you, back up one step. Everything that's in a can means it's fully cooked. And the reason is because everything, the chachma of canning is you put the food in the can, you seal the can so no bacteria can get into there, and then you cook it. You heat it up for so much that you kill everything that's inside the can. So if you kill everything that's in the can and nothing new can come in, it'll never spoil. Okay? Then no microorganisms get in to make it spoil. The ones that are in there are dead, so it's never going to spoil. It'll last for 1,000 years, it'll never spoil. Okay? That's the chachma of doing something in a can. So when you buy canned tuna, you buy canned peas, you know that they're cooked inside there because that's the whole chachma of what you did to this thing is you heat it up. They weren't trying to cook it, they were trying to heat it to the point that it won't spoil.
I thought I heard they steamed fish whole on the ship.
I didn't get to that yet.
Okay.
I didn't get to that yet. So I was saying, so it's fish, it's cooked.
Yeah.
But tuna is unusual that they cook it before they put it into the can also. So it gets double cooked. Okay? The cooking that's done beforehand is steaming. They hang the fish and they just blow steam at them. So now, one thing I said to you a second ago was maybe steaming doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. But put that on the side for a second. But steamed tuna is not Oleh Shach Melachim. Broiled tuna is Oleh Shach Melachim. Yesterday we saw in HEB. Okay, you buy tuna steak, you take that, put it onto a grill, and you broil it or stick it in your oven. That's Oleh Shach Melachim.
Yeah, you talk
But
about that in your
but steamed tuna is not Oleh Shach
Even
Melachim.
before it's put in the can.
And it's fully cooked at that point. That fish, the way you're preparing it is not Oleh Shach Melachim. If you broil the tuna, it would be Oleh Shach Melachim. But cooking the tuna, steaming like that, well, cooking it either way, it's not Oleh Shach Melachim. So that's a better reason why it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. Okay, now why it doesn't need a yid to check it, that's you have to wait till you learn purple safer. Alcoholic beverages. In alcoholic beverages, that's where it is. In Simon.
Why is it in non-alcoholic?
Why is it in alcoholic beverages? Because it's in Simon. Alcoholic beverages is on two simanim, Kuf Yud and Kuf Chaf Gimel. Okay. In Kuf Yud Daled, I think it's in Kuf Yud Daled where it talks about in passing this. It's the only place where it says this din that maybe says that you have to have a person there for fish. I don't remember. I believe it fit in the Kuf Yud Daled.
It's in one of the simanim up there. That's why.
Is there any?
It's in the simon. I think it must be in Kuf Yud Daled. So it's in there. So one day you guys will learn Kuf Yud Daled. You say you just Kuf Yud Beis, Kuf Yud Gimel. Are you doing Kuf Yud Daled next? Kuf Tezvav. Okay. So you'll animal products. You know there's a safer on that.
Kuf Tezvav? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There are three. I have a safer. It's color. The cover is orange, but it's called animal products. And what it is, it's on 3 simanim: Pei Aleph, Pei Vav, and Kuf Tes Vav. Pei Aleph is yotzim etami, Pei Vav is beitzim, and Kuf Tes Vav is dairy products. Those are 3 small simanim. Each one is too small to be a sefer by itself. But what they have in common is that all things that come from animals that are not fleishiks. Okay, yotzim etami, and beitzim, and eggs. What? That's in Kuf Tes Vav. So those 3 are together are called animal products because they're all things that come from animals that are not fleishiks. So that's what they have in common. So Kuf Tes Vav is the 3rd section of that sefer. So if you learn Kuf Tes Vav, you need to get that. You don't need to, but it's a smart idea.
Yeah. What's the halacha by eggs? You find it in the sefer that eggs are not Oleh shulchan melachim. That's the big kasha. Why did everyone seem to say that eggs are a problem?
I know why they say it, but I don't understand why they still say it. Yes, we know why they say it originally. Yeah.
So we had we had a hard time understanding it because eggs are a chashav Michael.
Really?
Saying people do consider eggs to be.
Did you ever? I don't know what passes in San Antonio, but I never went to a yeshiva dinner that they served me a hard-boiled egg or a fried egg like for breakfast. You went to like a fancy event and that's what they serve you a scrambled egg?
Let's say by a bris. A lot of times
Exactly. That's exactly true. It's a bris. It's exactly what you serve at a bris. And we don't consider it to be Oleh shulchan. So if you tell me you think a bris
is not Oleh shulchan also according to you.
For a side reason, the way it comes out of the can, that's debatable.
Even after it comes out of the can, nobody puts that out as a kosher.
Okay, we could debate that. Maybe you'll tell me there are dishes that are made with canned tuna. Maybe we could argue about that. I don't have to feel so bad because I have 2 other reasons why it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel.
Right,
but I know that eggs are not, and I don't think that breakfast is a fancy breakfast like a bris is Oleh shulchan melachim. So you could argue with me. You could tell me no. I think that a breakfast is considered shulchan melachim.
That's why I understood the Chazon Ish Svara by sardines.
Okay. So if you say that, then yes, then you have
breakfast.
Then you have a reason.
Shulchan Aruch doesn't say anything about dinner. He says Oleh shulchan melachim.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's a breakfast, but if that would be the royal breakfast, that's also Oleh shulchan melachim.
Okay. The royal breakfast to me that's like an oxymoron. If you say the Chazon Ish,
they don't eat breakfast.
Right, they eat breakfast.
Fine, we'll go with lunch.
They eat breakfast, so they don't. That's not a royal event. It's to eat breakfast. We eat breakfast because I got to eat breakfast. I'm hungry. I eat breakfast. I just got to get by. But again, if you think that's Oleh shulchan melachim, then you have a good explanation. But the people who require it, like the CRC and every other major hashgacha who requires eggs to be Oleh shulchan melachim, those people are not judging breakfast to be Oleh shulchan melachim. They don't treat it like that. So we're not being consistent with what we think. We don't judge things like that. So we're stuck on it because the Mechaber says it. The Mechaber is not talking about Oleh shulchan melachim. He's talking about Nechel Chai over there.
But it's clearly held that it's Oleh shulchan melachim.
So I don't care. For him, it was Oleh shulchan melachim. I'm sure he knew that it was Oleh shulchan melachim, but not for me. Okay, my mother, for her birthday, when she was a few years old, that was her birthday present. She got an egg. Okay, she got an egg. That was her birthday present. Okay, so it tells you the massive way things were, where she was coming from. Okay, but so for him it was chashav. Okay, so it's chashav. If for you it's chashav, so the shulchan aruch didn't have a problem with that. But to me, it's a joke. I mean, fried eggs. But okay, anyway, yeah.
So what's the lemaisa on the eggs? Meaning,
so lemaisa.
Meaning not a kasha nation.
The Sirashir Barnum said no, but what if everybody does it? So they're like, okay, we'll assume that it needs Bishul Yisroel. But they couldn't give me a good explanation for why should that be the rule. That's Hashgacha make a huge hassle with it. If you've been to, it's like a go to the convention. Okay, so a convention is going to have breakfast. When they serve breakfast, one of the things that happens at these breakfasts is they have to call the egg stations. You go to the guy and he makes you an egg live. What?
That's what I meant when I said the chashav.
Okay, so they have an egg station. So there's 500 people at this thing. There's 10 egg stations. Okay, so mashgichim make themselves crazy because every one of those has to be lit by a yid and keep an eye on it in case it blows out. So we have a team of mashgichim keeping an eye on all these egg stations to make sure that they're all Bishul Yisroel. Really? I'm like, really? Like, what's the point? Like, what's this? Wait.
So what do you let it go in your house?
In my house, I have to think about that. I can't see what's wrong with it. I don't understand. I don't get it. But I don't have to cook in my house anyhow. But
well,
yeah. I don't have to go cook in my house. And if I did,
Yeah, I'm saying.
I told you the rule beforehand. We're not being medactic that this you could cook and this you can't cook. You know, she
Yeah, but that's practical. But like, well, Lemaisa, like the guy comes in for a one-time thing, like turn like we do.
I can't do what I don't understand it. You know, it doesn't make sense to me.
A canned corn and canned beans. What's the head there?
They're
Why does it
nechal
matter?
chai. They're nechal chai.
Nechal chai? Beans? A red
Canned
bean?
beans.
Let's say kidney bean, the challah beans.
Oh, okay. So
They-
those
they
are not
can
Oleh
have it. There's an OU.
Those are not Oleh Shulchan Aruch.
They're not Oleh Shulchan Aruch.
Beans? No, not Oleh Shulchan Aruch.
They don't put in any goulash, like they don't put in any foods.
So you could come up with there are
Over here they serve
3 bean salad.
black beans, like a
Three bean
kosher
salad.
Michael here, like Mexican.
okay. So
Goes
you
into-
you might be different. We'll put you know the South here different might be different, but as a rule, no really as a
Chili.
rule,
Good old.
the it's true we can find machal that are Oleh Shulchan. We can, okay, 3 bean salad. There's things that are Oleh Shulchan. But if you look at the world and say how much, I don't mean the world. When you look at the market, how much of beans is in a way that's Oleh Shulchan and how much is not. It's such a vast majority of it is not Oleh Shulchan that we see overall the food is not Oleh Shulchan. The fact that we can come up with doesn't
So this was a shabbos, let's say sushi that's not commercial chai, fish. That wouldn't be considered not commercial chai.
so.
Let's say that's
So your
maybe
question
it's an ice cream with
so your
eggs.
question is not whether the sushi should need Bishul Yisroel because you said it's raw. You say, this is not cooked. You're saying, but that should be a raya that other things should not be. Okay, so there's a few parts to the answer to that question. One is that it's let's see if I can remember this. I know there's 3 parts to my answer. I have to just think it through. Okay, one is that it's not clear that enough people eat raw sushi to make it that makes a difference. The fact that there's a person doesn't mean there's enough people that eat it, and that might depend. It might depend on where you live and on the times. Maybe today it's this way and yesterday was different like that. You know, whether there's
But
enough
that
people.
would depend on the times. Meaning, if now a lot of people eat it.
One question would be have we cut to the point that enough people would eat raw sushi? Okay, the sushi that they're making HEB, I don't think is using raw fish in it. I don't remember. I didn't ask
They
him.
used to.
Oh, actually, it is raw fish.
Yeah,
Oh, that is raw fish. Yeah. I'm sure really. There's no way for them to cook there, so it's raw fish. Okay, so the question is.
How far it is?
Okay, so let me just finish what I'm saying here.
Take them with.
Okay, so one question is whether there's enough people who eat it. That's one thing. Okay, the next question is, I'm only remembering 2 of them, not 3, not all 3. I'm sorry. The next one is, when you eat. Oh, I remember all 3. Okay, the next one is, if you eat raw sushi with raw fish in it, are you really eating raw fish, or it's just adding an interesting flavor to the cooked food that you're willing to tolerate the rawness of it because it adds an interesting flavor to what the kind of food you're eating. Like, for example, if people eat raw potatoes, they put in little pieces of raw potatoes into a salad. Raw potatoes are not edible it's raw, but overall that somehow that is an interesting way of looking at it that makes me want to eat it. And the third thing is that, and we actually saw this when we were there, regular fish that you eat is not sushi grade. Okay, sushi grade is a better kind of
That
fish.
just has to do with the freshness, or that has to do with the
Freshness of the
Fresh
fish.
is not going to change
It is because in the fresh fish, maybe we could say if it's so fresh, it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. But once it's not so fresh, then this food is not nechal chai. This is not a food that's nechal chai. It was nechal chai yesterday, but as it is, that's not nechal chai.
So by corn, we say that's not commercial chai because you could eat it raw, even though
No, because you could eat raw today also. Not just because you could eat raw when you pull off the cook.
you could buy it from the store and eat it raw.
So
Kids these days.
I was surprised when I heard this the first time also. So then we tried it, okay, and it tastes perfectly fine. It tastes better. It's the shop about hard pears, okay? What?
Mm-hmm.
That at least in my mind is agas means pears. I don't know if that's what it really means, but anyhow, that's so that you're allowed to, that it's considered. If people just like it better when it's cooked, but they would eat it raw, also that's considered nechal chai. So one thing is that it tastes perfectly fine. And as he said, your kids will tell you that it tastes perfectly fine. You try it yourself; you'll see it tastes perfectly fine. But then the question came up: wait a second, but just because it would, but if nobody eats it, then is that worth anything? I believe that this survey is in there. So we surveyed people, and we came out with, I forgot what number, a nice amount of people.
6%.
I forgot what the number was. Who eat it raw or who would eat it raw? And it really does. You try it. You go home. I don't know if there's, you can't buy corn now, but you can, it tastes fine.
And you said eggs, raw eggs and mayonnaise. The reason why it's not a problem, mayonnaise and ice cream.
What's the problem? What's the question?
Because there's eggs in it.
That's too much.
Can eggs-
You said it's
can
raw
eggs-
eggs.